जय जिनेन्द्र। अरिहंत सिद्ध सुर उपाध्याय साधु सर्व अर्थ के प्रकाशी मांगलिक उपकारी है। तीन को स्वरूप जानी रागते भई जो भक्ति काय को नमाय स्तुति को उच्चारी है। धन्य धन्य तुम से काज सब आज भयो कर जोरी बारंबार वंदना हमारी है। मंगल कल्याण सुख ऐसो हम चाहते हो मेरी ऐसी दशा जैसी तुम धारी है। हो मेरी ऐसी दशा जैसी तुम धारी है। वंदितु सौ सिद्धे ध्रुव चलमणु वमम गदिम पते वोछामी समय पाहुड़ मिणमो शुद्ध केवली बणिदम नमः समय साराय स्वानुभूत्या चकासते चित स्वभावाय भावाय सर्वभावांतर छिदे। So, Acharya Kunkundev Samay sir, and in that we are discussing now Gatha number 31. Yesterday we completed from 26 to 30, and in all that we saw that the main theme was discriminative knowledge between the soul and the body. So that journey continues, and today also we will be discussing more on discriminative knowledge, but from a different perspective. Okay. So very interesting Gatha 31, 32, 33. So here the last question that was asked yesterday was, then what is the praise from the real point of view? Okay. All those admiring the different attributes of the body of a Tirthankar is a conventional viewpoint praise. Then what is the praise from the real viewpoint? That was the question. And in answer to that question, this particular verse has come into existence. Okay. So now the question arises, if this is conventional praise, Vyavhar Stuti, then what is the real praise, Nischay Stuti? In reply to this very question, the 31st, 32nd and 33rd Gathas were composed. Among them, the 31st Gatha, which describes the form of the first type of Nischay Stuti. So in reality, what is this Nischay Stuti? Real point of view praise. Praise from the real point of view. What would be the real point of view praise? Anyone?
Praise of the internal qualities, sir.
Praise of the?
Internal qualities.
Okay. Then anyone else? Okay. So here they want to explain the praise from the real point of view is self-realization, self-experience, okay? Non-conceptual experience, nirvikalp anubhuti. That is the nischay stuti, you know. So whenever it comes to real point of view, it is always the self-experience. You know, in Vitrag Vigyan 2, I think we had one chapter, Shat Avashyak, 6 essentials. You know, Dev Puja, Guru Upasana, Swadhyay, Sanyam, Tab, Dan. All the 6 are the essentials. So there also it was explained from the conventional viewpoint and from the real viewpoint. And when we considered the real viewpoint, it was all about the self-realization or self-experience is the only essential that we need to do. All else is conventional. So here also, whether you praise the body or you praise the internal attributes of the soul, the real praise, the real viewpoint praise would be the self experience that is being explained here in Gatha number 31, 32, and 33. Okay. So we will see how do you practice the discriminative knowledge, and after practicing discriminative knowledge, how you lead to the self realization or the self experience. Okay. So we will read the Hindi one. जो इंद्रियों को जीत जाने ज्ञानमय निज आत्मा, वे है जितेंद्रिय जिन कहे परमार्थ साधक आत्मा. Those who have conquered the senses. Now, what do you mean by conquered the senses? Okay. First of all, what are the senses? So here, the senses have been described in three ways. One is the material senses, like eyes, ear, nose, all these are material senses. Then the second category is psychical. Psychical means not CYC, but PSYCHICAL. Psychical, psychical, okay? So we have bhav, when seven fundamentals were being explained, so there were also two viewpoints. One bhav paksh and another one was dravya paksh. So material influx, psychic influx. So that psychic is here used. So one, we have physical senses, material senses. Then the second category is the psychical senses, which is also called bhav indriya. The first one was dravya indriya, then bhav indriya, and then the third category is indriya ke vishayabhut padarth, object of those senses. Okay, so these senses would be explained in three ways. So those who having conquered the senses. Now what do you mean by conquered the senses? So generally speaking, we say conquered the senses means when we renounce the sensual pleasure, then we say that it is the conquering of the senses. But no, that is not the here meaning here. The here meaning is conquering the senses means winning over them. How do we win over them? So when we practice discriminative knowledge, and by practicing discriminative knowledge, we are able to connect with our soul and experience it, then it is said that you have conquered the senses. So the moment you experience your soul, you are not indulging in sensual pleasures. Okay. And that is the time you have conquered the senses. Okay. So conquering the senses means winning over senses through the discriminative knowledge. Okay. Through the discriminative knowledge means experiencing the soul so that the sensual pleasures, the cravings for sensual pleasures doesn't arise. That is called the conquering the senses. So those who having conquered the senses know the Atma, know the pure soul to be distinct, different from other substances. Okay. Know the Atma here, know means experience the Atma. Okay. So these are some of the terminologies that you have to understand. Otherwise, I don't know how we would be able to understand the meaning, So Sem8 is written in a very special, I would say, special methodology. Okay. And in that methodology, the meaning of the words do change. Okay. So we have to know those meanings, otherwise we will not be able to understand the meaning. Okay. So those who having conquered the senses know the Atma, that means experience the Atma to be distinct from other substances, are truly conquerors of the senses. Jitendriya. Okay. Jitendriya means conqueror of the senses. Thus say the sages established in the real viewpoint. Okay. So from the real point of view perspective, the sages, the acharyas says that those who have known the Atma, not known the Atma, experience the soul to be distinct from other substances, are truly the conqueror of the senses. So this is how we conquer the senses, just by indulging in self-realization, self-experience. Okay. So the moment you experience yourself, you have conquered over the senses. Okay. So now extra explanations are there, but we will definitely do it. Today we will be repeating again and again Dr. Parilji's commentary also, because we want to understand this particular verse in a better manner. Okay. This is the exposition of Nischay Stuti. So first of all, what is this about? This is the exposition of real praise. Nischay Stuti means real praise. This is the first Nischay Stuti. That means there are others also? Yeah, there would be three Nischay Stutis, three kinds of real praise. Okay, so this is the first. Then in the Gatha number 32, it would be the second. Then Gatha number 33 would be the third one. Okay, so this is the first Nischay Stuti, which arises after the removal of the fault of mixing the knower and the known. Gne Gnayak. Gnayak is knower, and what is known? Known is also referred as knowables. It is also referred as object of knowledge. Now tell me the Hindi word. Knower is Gnayak, then known is what? Known, knowables, object of knowledge, Gne. Okay, Gne and Gnayak. Okay, so which arises, so this is the first Nischay Stuti, which arises after the removal of the fault of mixing the knower and the known. So knower and known are two different entities. What is known? What is reflected in our knowledge is called the known, or the knowables, or the object of knowledge. In Hindi, we have only one word, Gne. Okay, so the soul is the knower, and all these objects that are reflecting on our knowledge screen are known as Gne, knowables, known, object of knowledge. Okay, reflections in our knowledge, it's all Gne. And mixing is called a fault. Fault of mixing is called Sankar Dosh. Okay, Sankar Dosh means two different entities. You are mixing them. This is a fault. Okay, the knower and the known can never be mixed, because both are different entities. Knower is a soul substance, and known are the non-self substances. So how can non-self and self mix? They never mix up. And that's why we need to practice this discriminative knowledge between the self and the non-self. Okay, so all the knowables are of the category of non-self. Okay, so when will the real praise arise? When, by practicing discriminative knowledge, you remove the fault of mixing the knower and the knowables. Okay, that means knower is different and knowables are different. Okay, when you practice such discriminative knowledge, then it is called Nischay Stuti, real praise. The knower, Gnayak, means the Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is knowing and seeing. What is our nature? Knowing and seeing. Okay, and the known. Jinali, I was remembering you right now. I was thinking that yesterday you didn't turn up, and then of course you have given the objectives, I know, but you should attend the class also.
Sir, I
To
was traveling,
Okay,
so I
but
just
this
came
semester I
yesterday
want you to
night.
be regular. Okay,
Yes, sir.
keep everything aside. only 1.5 years are left, and this particular subject, Sem8 sir, is so good that if you understand one or two class also very nicely, you will be able to live a very happy and blissful life. You know, all
Yes,
the
sir.
problems of our day-to-day life will be solved by this theory of discriminative knowledge. Okay, so and you are also into meditation, so for you also this is a very must subject. Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay, good. The knower means the Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is knowing and seeing. So our nature is knowing and seeing. Don't go beyond knowing and seeing. So what we do, general mistakes, we go beyond knowing and seeing, and we become a doer. We do oneness, we do mindness, we become a doer, and we become an enjoyer. So all these four are the pillars of delusion, and that's why the delusions persist, and that's why we are not able to know the actual, the real nature of our pure soul. So the real nature of pure soul is knowing and seeing, nothing beyond that. Whether you believe it or you don't believe it, the nature never changes. Even when we were in one sensed being, we were still a knower only. Okay, we never become a doer. Okay, the nature of reality is such that one substance cannot do anything in the other substance. Okay, so although we believe that we are doer, we don't become such. Okay, we don't become a doer. By believing a doer, we don't become a doer. That is the reality, that is the truth. Okay, so the truth is also in our side. Although we believe that I am the body, but we never become the body. We believe that we are the doer, but we never become a doer. We believe that we are the enjoyer, but we never enjoyed. Okay, so all these realities are in our favor. The truth is in our favor. You have to just accept and move on. Okay, okay. And the known. So the knower means the Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is knowing and seeing, and the other party is the known, knowables, object of knowledge. Gne means the object that come within the scope of knowledge. Okay, very clear. Two parties, one is Gnayak, another one is Gne. Okay, so Gnayak is Bhagwan Atma, and Gne is the objects that come within the scope of our knowledge. The objects that reflect on our knowledge screen, those are called Gne. Okay, the knowing Bhagwan Atma is separate, and the external objects that come to be known are separate. Okay, so Gne is separate and Gnayak is separate. But the ignorant soul, not realizing them as distinct, considers both to be one. So here is the fault. Both are distinct. Gnayak is distinct and Gne is distinct. But the ignorant soul, not realizing them as distinct, considers both to be one. Now, what you have to do to separate these two? Darshitji, tell me. What we need to do to separate these two? So I have muted you today also. Let me find out. I have not muted you. Unmute? No. How do we do that? In my video, I can see that your audio is open. You talk, but it's not coming. So I think there is some problem at your mic.
Darshiji, you check it out whether you're muted. Reduce the sound of your mic.
No, I can see it's not muted right now.
No, reduce the sound of the mic.
Sometimes that also happens. Increase the sound.
Go to audio settings and check it.
So we need to fix this one. Okay. Okay, Priyanka, you try. So what was the question, Subha?
What is true Nishchay Stuti?
That was there, but right now the discussion was going on something else. The
Right.
knowing Bhagwan Atma is
We should
separate.
not mix Nyayak and Nek. They both
Ah,
are different.
but the ignorant soul, not realizing them as distinct, consider both to be one.
One.
Okay. So both to be one. So my question was, how do we separate these two? My question was that. Any answers? Jinali, want to try?
So with Vedgnan,
Yeah, but you understand my question. I said that Bhagwan Atma, which is Gnayak, is separate, and the external objects, Gne.
Yes, see, to understand that the soul is both Nayak and Nek.
No, no,
Not that
no.
true. Okay.
But the thing is that my answer was, we don't need to separate. They are separate only. We are believed to be one, so we want to discard that misbelief, That is what we need to do. Okay. They are already separate. The Bhagwan Atma is separate and the Gne are separate. We don't have to separate them. Okay. They are already separate, but the ignorant soul, not realizing them as distinct, considers both to be one. This acceptance of there is tainted by the fault of mixing the knower and the known. Okay. This acceptance of theirs is tainted by the fault of mixing the knower and the known. So the ignorant soul mixes the knower and the known, and that's why he is ignorant. Now, what is the reality? Although one's own Bhagwan Atma is both the knower and the known. How it is known, Subha? You tell me. Knower, we understood that he is a knower. But how it is known?
But during a self-realization,
Uh,
we try to learn about Atma and its
okay.
attributes. We were try to
Okay.
realize Atma.
Okay. So as the external objects are reflecting our knowledge screen, our soul is also reflecting in our knowledge screen. So we have two categories of Gne, Swagne, Pargne. Okay. Par is other objects and Swa is self. Okay. So in our knowledge screen, our own soul is also reflecting and the other objects are also reflecting. Okay. Although one's own Bhagwan Atma is both the knower and the known, because it both knows and is itself known. Yet here the discussion is not concerning one's own knowable nature, Nij Gne. Rather, it concerns external knowables. So now we want to practice between the external knowables and the Bhagwan Atma, not our own soul, self soul that we want to discriminate between. Okay. So this is, it concerns only external knowables, Pargne. Okay. Then the next paragraph, question. Which external knowables are such that they are mistaken to be the knower? Okay, very good question. Which external knowables per Gne are such that they are mistaken to be the knower? So just now we discussed, no, the knower and the known, okay, or the knowables. So knower and knowables are two distinct separate entities, but the ignorant soul mistook it as one. Okay. So now the question is, which external knowables are such that they are mistaken to be the knower? So then there will be three parts, three divisions of these senses. Okay. So which external knowables? The senses. Now the senses themselves are such knowables that are mistaken to be the knower. Okay. So senses are part of the bodies. Okay. And this soul considers itself, soul and the body, as one. Okay. So that is the mistake. Okay. The senses themselves are such nobles that are mistaken to be the knower. Therefore, it is said here that those who having conquered the senses know their own Bhagwan Atma to be distinct from other substances in the form of knowables are conqueror jinas of the senses, Jitendriya Jin, conqueror jinas. Okay, so this is the real praise. Having conquered the senses, know their own Bhagwan Atma to be distinct from other substances in the form of knowables, are conqueror of the senses. While explaining the meaning of this gatha in the Atma Khyati, Acharya Amrit Chandra Dev.
Excuse me, Ji, small doubt. Right, material senses are eyes, nose, and all, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
But what are those objects of those senses? That
So
means
that we are coming on to this paragraph. Okay.
yeah.
So I'll explain. I explained in the initial also, starting at the starting point also, when I was discussing the verse, the meaning of the senses in three ways. So those three things are coming up. Okay.
Yeah. Thank
While
you.
explaining the meaning of this gatha in the Atma Khyati, Acharya Amrit Chandra Dev interprets the word Indriya, senses, as referring to material senses, number one, physical senses, physical nahi, psychical, I misspelled, psychical, okay, bhav indriya, psychical senses is bhav indriya, and the objects which are the subject of the senses, Indriya Vishay Bhut Padarth. So through eyes, you can see all these objects. You know, there is a laptop, there is a table, there is a chair. So these are called the object of the senses of eye. Now, object of the senses of ear, all kinds of words that you are hearing now, you know, these are the object of the senses of the ear sense. Then smell through nose, we are smelling it. So it's an object, it is again the subject of the senses. So this is called, these are all included in the word senses. So senses word has three meaning. First is the material senses, which are parts of the body. Clear? Second is psychical senses, bhavindriya. Now, what is this bhavindriya? I'll explain. So, you see through eyes, right? But if the soul is not there, can you see through eyes? Dead body can see through eyes. Although eyes are there in the dead body, but he cannot see because the powerhouse soul has gone. That means the knowledge is not in the eyes. The knowledge is in the soul, and from that soul the knowledge comes out through the senses. Okay, so senses are the outlets through which our knowledge comes out. Okay, so those are called bhav indriya, psychical senses. Psychical senses means knowledge, knowledge through senses. Okay, knowledge through senses, not the knowledge that is coming out from the soul, not that knowledge, knowledge through senses. Okay, so that is called psychical senses, and the objects which are the subject of the senses, indriya vishay bhut padarth. Okay, so in the word senses, not only material senses has been included, but psychical senses, the knowledge that spread through the senses, is also included. Indriya
Can
Gyan.
you explain what is that psychical senses one more time? Sorry for
So,
the confusion.
so like if you see the objects through eyes, right? Now that object you can see through eyes just because the knowledge is there in the soul, that knowledge is operating through the senses.
Oh,
So the
yeah.
knowledge which operate through the senses are called psychical senses. Shayopsham Gyan.
Okay.
Okay. Shayopsham Gyan. Okay. So psychical senses are bhavindriya, and the objects which are the subject of the senses, you know, Dev Guru Shastra, my family, my house, my laptop, my watch, everything, my books, all these are called objects or subjects of the senses. Okay. Object which are the subjects of the senses, Indriya, Vishay, Bhut, Padarth. All these three are called senses. Okay. He further explains in detail what it means to conquer these three kinds of senses: material senses, psychical senses, and the objects which are the subject of the senses. Okay. And what the method of conquering them is. Okay. So he further explains in detail what it means to conquer these three kinds of senses and what the method of conquering them is. Okay. And what is the method of conquering them. So we will be understanding it very clearly, very important. The essential purport of this Atmakhyati commentary written by Acharya Amrit Chandra on this Gatha is as follows. Okay. So this was the introduction, first paragraph. Now the commentary, real commentary starts here. Due to the beginningless and limitless bondage of modification. So we have been under the influence of bondage since beginningless time. Okay. Soul is eternal, so it has got no beginning. And since beginningless time, we are under the bondage of modifications. Sometimes we become human, sometimes subhuman, sometimes celestial beings, sometimes hellish being. Okay. But due to from the beginningless time only, we are wandering in these four states of existence, and each state has got many different species. Okay. Like subhuman state, there are many millions of species are there in the subhuman state. Okay. So due to the beginningless and limitless bondage of modification, in which all distinctions between self and non-self has vanished. Why it has vanished? Because of delusion, because of ignorance. Okay. So no distinction between self and non-self. Okay. That is, which have become so united with the Atma that no difference appears. Such material senses, Dravya Indriya, whose bodily modification have thus arisen, are to be separated entirely from oneself. Okay. So the distinctions between the self and non-self has vanished due to the delusion, ignorance. Now that has to again, we have to again understand and realize. Okay. So these material senses are so united with the Atma that no difference appears. Such material senses, whose bodily modifications have thus arisen, are to be separated entirely from oneself. So it is written that are to be separated, but in reality it is separate itself. So when you will realize that it is separate itself, when you experience the self, then you will realize that this was separate from me. Okay. Unless and until you are not realizing yourself, you cannot say that this is separate from me. Okay. You can say on words, but the experience has to be, it has to be supported by the experience. So his bodily modifications have thus arisen, are to be separated entirely from oneself, to be known as wholly distinct. So this paragraph is dedicated to only material senses. We are discriminating from the material senses. Okay. Next paragraph would be about the psychic senses, and the third paragraph would be about the object of the senses, and the fourth would be the conclusion. So 4 paragraphs only the commentary. Okay. Okay. So are to be separated entirely from oneself, to be known as wholly distinct, to be known as wholly distinct, completely distinct, through proficiency in pure discriminative practice. Bhed Vigyan, Nirmal Bhed Abhyas, Bhedabhyas. Okay. through proficiency. Proficiency means expertise, okay, in pure discrimination practice. So we have to practice again and again. So we will also become proficient. Okay. How do you become proficient? By constant practice. Okay. Through proficiency in pure discrimination practice, Nirmal Bhedabhyas, and through the strength of taking support of the extremely subtle conscious nature, and through the strength of taking support of the extremely subtle conscious nature, Chaitanya Swabhav. Okay, so you want to practice discriminative knowledge, so that has to be between two parties. So one of the party is this subtle conscious nature, Chaitanya Swabhav, that is my nature, manifested inwardly. So when you manifest inwardly, then you are able to take shelter of this conscious nature. This indeed is the conquering of the material senses. So how do you conquer these material senses? By practicing discriminative knowledge between the self and the non-self, and through the strength of taking support of the extremely subtle conscious nature manifested inwardly. So when our active consciousness turns inward, then only we are able to take support of the conscious nature. And when we take up support of the conscious nature, that is the time we conquer the material senses. So this is the
Excuse me, one more doubt. So when I'm talking about the, right, I might be wrong, but when I'm talking about the material senses, we are talking about eyes, nose, throat, and eyes, nose, mouth, and all. J. Am I right?
yes, yes,
Right? They are only parts of the body.
yes,
But we are having one more thing which is called as object of the senses. For example, right, taste, touch, everything will come under
yes,
object
yes,
of the senses. So
yes,
those are actually indriya things. What is
yes.
going to happen with the eyes, nose, and throat when I'm not worried about those object of senses? My
Pardon, last part of the question, what you said?
right, simply having eyes, nose, and throat is not meaningful, am I right, Ji? We are only worried about the object of senses.
No, see, we have to practice discriminative knowledge with all the three kinds of senses, right? So
The
now we are discussing material senses. So material senses, we can easily discriminate when the body is not we, I am not the body, then the parts of the body is also not belonging to me. So
okay.
how do you discriminate? So for practicing this discriminative knowledge, the Acharya Amrit Chandra Dev is telling us through the strength of taking support, shelter of the extremely subtle conscious nature. Okay? So you have to take shelter of this conscious nature, subtle conscious nature, manifested inwardly. This indeed is the conquering of the material senses. When I would say that you have conquered the material senses, when you take shelter of this conscious nature and realize yourself. Okay. Once you realize, then we can say that you have conquered the material senses. Okay. So this is the first way. Now the second way coming up. The psychic senses, which in their operations with different objects apprehend objects in fragments. So we have five senses. So eyes, so our knowledge is fragmented into five parts. Eyes, nose, okay. So sometimes our knowledge functions through eyes, sometimes through ears, and it happens so fast that we feel that simultaneously we are also listening and we are also seeing. But the the knowledge that we have, the what you called mati gyan and shrut gyan. Mati gyan is sensory knowledge and shrut gyan is scriptural knowledge. These two knowledge operate through five senses and mind. Okay. So the psychic senses, which in their operations with different objects apprehend objects in fragments. So eyes only could see, ear could only hear, nose could only smell. So these are called fragments. It has been subdivided into five fragments. Okay. apprehend objects in fragments, and represent knowledge as being divided into fragments. These two are to be separated from oneself, to be known as wholly distinct through the indivisible, unified power of consciousness, Chaitanya Shakti. Okay. So, how do you discriminate between the psychic senses? So, the psychic senses were apprehending objects in fragments. Okay. So, eyes will only see, nose will only hear, and uh, uh, and nose will only smell, ear will only hear, the tongue would only taste, So these are all fragmented. Okay. So how do you practice discriminative knowledge from this? Is to be known as wholly distinct through the indivisible, unified power of consciousness that appears in direct awareness. Okay. So this unified power of consciousness, Chaitanya Shakti, that appears in direct awareness, pratiti. This is the conquering of the psychic senses. So psychic senses is nothing but the knowledge that is running through the senses. Okay. So the knowledge belongs to the soul, but since it is operating through senses, we call it as sensory knowledge. Okay. Sensory knowledge. Okay. So this Sayapsham Gyan is also different from the pure soul. Okay. So this is bit subtle, the psychic senses, which these are also separate from oneself. Okay. So this is how you conquer psychic senses. Now see, when we, in the previous paragraph, when we were conquering the material senses, what word were used? The subtle conscious nature. Okay. And here what it is used? The indivisible, because we are considering now the psychical senses which are in fragments. So the soul is indivisible. So through the indivisible unified power of consciousness. So there the power were divided into 5 senses, and that's why it was fragmented. Here the power is unified through the indivisible unified power of consciousness that appears in direct awareness. Okay. This is the conquering of the psychic senses. Now the third one. Object of the subject of senses. Because of the intimate relationship between the knower and the known, grahak and grahya, the knowledge of the sense object, indriya vishay, such as touch, taste, smell, sight, and sound, which are perceived through the psychical sense faculties, bhavendriyas, appear to be one with one's own awareness. Samvedana, okay, appears to be one with one's own awareness. Samvedana, feeling, Yet, through the power of its own consciousness, Chaitanya Shakti, the awakened soul directly experiences its complete separateness, asangata. The awakened soul directly experiences its complete separateness, asangta, to them, and thus realizes their distinctness from the self. Okay. So 3 senses, and to win over those 3 senses, different terminology has been used. Okay. So here it was used through the in the previous one, first one, it was used through subtle conscious nature, and in the second one it was used through the indivisible unified power of consciousness, and this third one here it is used uh, mm, through the power of its own consciousness. Okay. The awakened soul directly experiences its complete separateness to them. Okay. So the soul is complete separate from this object of the senses, and thus realizes their distinctness from the self. So this realization is very important. Okay. When we realize, then it's only the real praise. Okay, that is called Nischay Stuti. To know the sense object as completely separate from oneself in this way is the true conquest of the object of the senses. Okay. To know the sense objects as completely separate from oneself in this way is the true conquest of the object of the senses. Okay. Now the conclusion. In this manner, having conquered the physical senses, the psychical senses, and the objects belonging to them, the fault of the mixing, sankar, between the knowable and the knower. Knowable is gnay and the knower is gnayak, thereby removed. Those who through the knowledge nature, Gyan Sabhav, engraved exclusively in oneness. So here 6 references are given, 6 points. This is the first point. Engraved exclusively in oneness. Okay. So now in this manner, having conquered the physical senses, psychical senses, and the objects belonging to them, the fault of the mixing between the knowable and the knower thereby removed, those who through the knowledge nature engraved exclusively in oneness, first point, floating about the universe, floating about the universe. Third, ever shining inwardly through its directly self-luminous radiance. Ever shining inwardly through its directly self-luminous radiance. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, imperishable. 4, self-established. 5th, and the last one, and of the nature of ultimate reality, experience. Now this word is very important. Experience their own self as, in the ultimate sense, entirely distinct from all other substance, are from the real viewpoint the conqueror of the senses. So experience their own self is very important. Okay. So when you experience, then only we say that you have conquered the senses. Okay. So all these 6 points were related to the pure soul, the knowledge nature, Gyan Sabhav. Okay. So the Gyan Sabhav engraved exclusively in oneness, floating about the universe. The soul is floating about the universe. Why? Because it doesn't become a doer. When you become a doer, then there is lot of loads on you for doing it. Okay. But since he is he is the knower, he is the enlightened soul, so he floats about the universe. Then the third point, ever shining inwardly through its directly self-luminous radiance. That pure soul is having self-luminous radiance. Okay, so it's always shining. Then fourth one, imperishable. It will never perish. Okay. Once it is established in your knowledge screen, it will never perish, imperishable. Then self-established. Self-establishment is, it has not been produced by anybody. It is self-established. Okay. And the last one, of the nature of ultimate reality. Experience their own self, experience their own self as, in the ultimate sense, entirely distinct from all other substance, are from the real viewpoint the conquerors of the senses. Okay. So 4 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, the discriminative practice between the soul and the physical senses, material senses was done. In the second paragraph, it was psychical senses and the soul. And in the third paragraph, it is the object of the senses and the soul. All these 3 are termed as senses, whether it is material sense, psychical sense, or the object of the sense. All are included in the sense. So basically the discrimination is between the soul and the senses. Okay. And that was the essence of this gatha. Okay, so this is how you practice discriminative knowledge. Now we will read all these explanations also. Okay, Subha, you start reading. In this gatha, unmute yourself. Subha. Yes.
In this gatha, three matters are brought together simultaneously. Jitendriya Jina, the removal of fault of mixing between the knower and the known. Neya Nayaka Sankara Dosh, and the real price, Nishchaya Tudi. He who conquers the senses is called Jitendra Jina. Conquering the senses is itself the first type of real praise, and it occurs only after the removal of fault of mixing the knower with the known. Thus, all three matters are interlinked. To grasp the purport of this katha, it is most necessary to understand these 3 points in depth. Generally, people understand that conquering the senses is renouncing the enjoyment of 5 senses. Therefore, in order to become conquerors of the senses, Jitendriya, they attempt to abandon those enjoyments. But they do not know that here conquering the senses actually means knowing one's own Bhagavan Atma, whose nature is that of the knower, as distinct from the senses, establishing sense of belonging with it, and attaining self-experience. The meaning of the word sense, indriya, is not merely the visible organs like eyes and the ears. Touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing, these 5 are only the substantial senses, dravya indriya. They are organs of the body. Hence, they are said to undergo bodily modifications. They are inert, capable of knowing or saying. It is the Bhagwan Atma abiding in the body that performs knowing and saying. The Shayob's Samaj state of the knowledge, attribute of the soul, which performs knowing and saying through the medium of senses, is called the psychic sense. Bhava Indriya. That too is itself a sense. The object with this Shayobshama form, Bhava Indriya, knows to the substantial senses such as touch, taste, etc. Those objects too are here termed sense. Note well, here the things that appear through the sense, Dev, Shastra, Guru, woman, sun, house, etc., are all included with the word sense. Look how remarkable this commentary is. The Gatha is indeed marvelous, and the Atma Kyati commentary is no less so. It is full capable of revealing the very essence of the Gatha. See what is being said here. The eye is indeed the eye, but the objects seen by the eye are also eye. Likewise, the ear is indeed the ear, but the sounds heard by the ears are also ear. In the same way, this should be understood for touch, taste, and smell. For ear, the objects pertaining to the senses are also being called sense. Is that not striking? Thus, here, all the things that appear through the senses are included within the word sense, indriya.
Stop. So you see, whatever you see through the senses, whatever you comprehend through the senses, are also included in the word sense. Okay, so sense has got 3 meanings. One is the material sense, the second is psychical sense. Psychical sense is the sayopsham state, the sayopsham state of the knowledge. Okay, knowledge attribute of the soul, which performs knowing and seeing through the medium of senses. Okay, so indriya gyan is called bhavendriya, shayopsham. So that is called psychic sense. Okay, and the objects like Dev, Shastra, Guru, family, house, car, whatever it is there, are also termed under the word sense. Okay. So sense word has been explained very nicely. You have to read these 3 times at least. Okay. Over the weekend, you read this 3 times. Once you complete your exam, you will have time. So you read this. Okay. Now continue. Who will else read? Priyanka, you read. Unmute yourself.
Jai Jinendra, sir.
Yeah.
So from O brother.
Yes.
O brother, the meanings of terms used in Samaisar are somewhat distinctive. Therefore, Samaisar is not something that can be understood on the run. To understand it, one must study deeply and with relish, seek the guidance of a teacher, and keep the company of the noble spiritual fellow beings. Yes, thus, touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing, and conventionally even the mind, that is man, these material senses, Dravyendriya, which have attained bodily modification, the psychical senses, Bhavindriya, in the form of the Shayupsham state of knowledge that knows through them, and the external knowable objects known through them, all these together are referred by the single term sense, Indriya. From beginningless time, the ignorant Jeev has regarded these senses as the Atma, has established belonging in them, and has remained absorbed and engrossed in them. This itself is its subjugation to the senses. The Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is that of the knower, is utterly distinct from these senses. It is engraved in oneness, ekatva, indestructible, ever shining inwardly toward direct self-luminosity, self-established, and of the nature of highest reality. Knowing this, knowing it through direct experience, and thereby establishing a sense of belonging only in that Bhagwan Atma, becoming firmly absorbed and delighting only in it, is the conquering of the senses. Indriya Vijay. Indriya Jay. The objects which are the subject of the senses are certainly knowables, Neya, and the substantial senses, Dravindriya, too are themselves knowables. Here it is even being said that the psychical senses, Bhavindriya, in the form of Shayupsham Gyan, are also knowables. The Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is that of the knower, is distinct from all of these. Not knowing this, to regard the senses as the knower, to regard the objects of the senses as the knowables, and to know the knower at all, and not to know the knower at all, this is one type of the defect of mixing between the known and the knower. Neya, Gyayak, Samkar, Dosh. And secondly, to regard the Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is that of the knower, and these 3 kinds of senses as completely one, being able to distinguish any difference between them, is also the defect of mixing between the known and the knower. Neya, Gyayak, Samkar, Dosh. To know, to accept, and to experience all 3 kinds of senses are knowables, as knowables, and to know the knower, Bhagwan Atma, as distinct from them. This is the removal of the fault of mixing the knower and the known. And this itself is called the first type of real praise, Nishchay Stuti, of the Tirthankar Bhagwan.
Stop. So you see one word which I would like to highlight, uh, the Bhagwan Atma paragraph. Take it further up. The Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is that of the knower, is utterly distinct from these senses. That's it, slightly up. Yeah. The Bhagwan Atma. Yes, this one. The Bhagwan Atma, whose nature is that of the knower, is utterly distinct from these senses. Senses means all 3 kinds of senses. It is engraved in oneness. Okay. It is engraved in oneness means it doesn't become connected with anything else. It always remain one as it is. Okay, as it is, as it was previously, same is right now and same will be in the future. It is engraved in oneness. Okay, ekatva. Then indestructible, nobody can destroy it. Okay, it is eternal. Then ever shining inwardly through direct self luminosity. Okay, it is always shining, always shining. Whenever you want to connect, it is always shining, because its nature is self luminosity. So it's always shining, glittering all the time. The moment you try to know it, you will be able to know it. Then it is self-established. It's not dependent on anybody. Self-established, totally independent, and of the nature of highest reality. Knowing this, okay, knowing it through direct experience. Knowing this means knowing it through direct experience. Now, this direct experience you highlight. This is very important. Unless and until you just talk about the distinction, but you don't experience, then you have not conquered the senses. When we would say you have conquered the senses, by practicing this descriptive knowledge, you realize yourself. Okay, you experience yourself. And the moment you experience yourself, then we say that you have, uh, then we say you have conquered the senses. Okay, and that is called the real praise. So this experience is very important. Okay, knowing this means knowing it through direct experience, and thereby establishing a sense of belonging only in that Bhagwan Atma. Okay, establishing a sense of belonging only in that Bhagwan Atma, becoming firmly absorbed and delighted only in it, immersed in it, focused in it. Okay, is the conquering of the senses. So one thing is very clear, conquering of the senses means realizing the self, experiencing the self. Then only you have conquered the sense, and when you have conquered the sense, this is called the real praise. Okay, and the third thing that is connected is this removal of the defects of the mixing of the knower and the knowables. So three things happening simultaneously. Although it is expressed in three different ways, but it means the same. The moment you conquer the senses is the moment you are doing the real praise, and the moment you are doing the real praise is the moment where you are distinguishing between the knower and the knowables. Okay, so you are removing that uh, defect of mixing the knower and the knowables. Okay, so these three things happening simultaneously. We'll continue to read. Jinali, you read. Here one question may arise from there.
1 minute, sir.
You also take a printout, huh?
Yes, sir. Here, one question may arise. This discussion concerns the non conceptual experience, Nirvikalpa Anubhav, of the
Ah,
Bhagwan Atma. Then, how has praise of the Tirthankara Bhagwan occurred in this? Praise of Tirthankara Bhagwan performed through the attributes grounded in their own soul should properly be called praise from the real viewpoint, Nischay Stuti. As he said in the Samaisara, Tam Nischay Jilludi
wait,
Sarai.
wait, wait. You read the English one in reply to the above question.
In
This is
reply
the
to the
verse number
above
29.
question,
We have already studied
yeah,
yesterday. This is the
yeah.
verse number 29. Yeah.
In reply to the above question, it is said if verbal praise had been performed on the basis of the attributes guna of the atma, then because it would have been made on the basis of distinction among the attributes guna beda, it would still have been called praise arising from the conventional viewpoint vyavhar stuti alone. Praise performed on the basis of bodily attributes is praise arising from the unreal conventional viewpoint. Asad, Asad Bhuta Vyavhar Nay. Whereas praise performed through describing the attributes of Atma would be praise arising from the real conventional viewpoint. Sadbhuta Vyavhar Nay. The real conventional viewpoint would stand opposed on only to the unreal conventional viewpoint, not to the real viewpoint. Nischay nahi. But here the real viewpoint had to be established in opposition to the conventional viewpoint. Therefore, non-conceptual experience, nirvikalpa anubhuti, has been called praise from the real viewpoint. Nischay stuti. Uh, should I continue, sir?
Yes, yes.
Question. This is fine, but this may be called praise of one's own Atma. How can it be called praise of the Tirthankara Bhagwan? Answer. What you say is indeed correct, but the command of the Bhagwan is also precisely this, that you should experience the Atma, that you should merge into the Atma alone, and you should also manifest as the Supreme Paramatma in your mode Paryay. Therefore, this self experience of the Atma is itself the fulfillment of his command. True devotion is obedience to the command. We do not follow the command of the Bhagwan and merely recount attributes verbally. How can that be called true devotion? Therefore, the experience of one's own Bhagwan Atma alone is the true real praise. Nischay Stuti.
So see, the experience of the one's own Bhagwan Atma is alone is the true, real praise. Okay. So the from where the discussion started, praise performed on the basis. Take it further up. 287. Yeah. Praise performed on the basis. Yeah, this one. Praise performed on the basis of bodily attributes is praise arising from the unreal conventional viewpoint. Asadbhut Vyavhar Nay. So that is Nay number 2. Number 2. Okay. We use the term literal, non-existent, conventional viewpoint. Okay. Whereas praise performed through the describing the attributes of the Atma would be praise arising from the real conventional viewpoint. Sadbudh Vyavarnai, that is number 4. Okay. So that the name of that is literal, existent, conventional viewpoint. Okay. So this would be praise arising from the real. Okay. There. Next. The real conventional viewpoint would stand opposed only to the unreal conventional viewpoint. Okay. Not to the real viewpoint. So these two are the categories of conventional viewpoint only. Okay. So this is not the real viewpoint. Okay. But here, the real viewpoint has to be established in opposition to the conventional viewpoint. Therefore, non-conceptual experience, nirvikalpa anubhuti, self-realization, deep introspective meditation, pure awareness, and one more terminology we used yesterday, non-conceptual experience. Yeah, this was the word, non-conceptual experience. Okay. So non-conceptual experience, deep introspective meditation, pure awareness, self-realization, all these leads to only one experience of the self, which is non-conceptual, nirvikalp anubhuti. Okay, has been called. So that's why it is called the praise from the real viewpoint. Okay. So then everything was simple. Now go to the next page. Yes. So this one also done. Because this is granted that the command of the thing is for self. Okay, this is what we need to read now. Okay, so Rajeshri ji, you read from this question.
Granted that the command of the Tirthankar Kevali is for self realization, yet praise ought to be in the form of recitation of their attributes. Should it not? Answer: no, such is not the case, as the real praise is not conceptual. In the near
Niyamsar.
Niyamsar, from real point of view, even devotion, repentance, pratikraman, renunciation, pratyakhan, and all such practices have been entirely included into self experience itself. Among the 28 fundamental attributes, Mulgun, of the Muni Raj, in the form of the six essentials, come praise, veneration, and also scriptural study. But when Bahubali remained absorbed in meditation for 1 full year, did his 28 fundamental attributes thereby became deficient? Was he guilty of failing to observe the six essentials? No, certainly not. Because in the non conceptual self meditation, from the real viewpoint, all the fundamental qualities became included and all the essentials are encompassed within it. Thus, this experience of the Bhagwan Atma is also the praise from the real viewpoint and the true conquest of the senses. And in this, the Bhagwan Atma is known and experienced as distinct from the knowables. Therefore, the defect of mixing the known and the knower is also avoided. In this, not only is the renunciation of self, sense enjoyments included, but also the renunciation of regarding and believing the external as one's own. Therefore, this is the true conquest of the senses. Merely forcibly abandoning external sense objects alone is not genuine conquest of the senses. In conclusion, it may be said that experiencing one's own Bhagwan Atma in the form of knower nature, as distinct from the material senses, the psychic senses, and the objects which are the subjects of these senses, the knowables, alone is true conquest of the senses. The first type of praise from the real viewpoint, and this is there is no defect whatsoever of mixing the known and the knower. A special point to be noted is this: since the substantial senses are manifestly inert, to conquer them, the exceedingly subtle consciousness nature revealed in the innermost self to the proficiency of their pure practice in discrimination is taken up. Since the psychic sense, being fragmented, make knowledge appear in fragments, in order to conquer them, the indivisible power of consciousness appearing in the direct awareness is taken up, and to conquer the senses in the form of external objects of the senses, the detached nature of the conscious power directly experienced by self is taken up. For it is precisely due to the nearness of the known and the knower, due to the association, that the delusion of their unity arises. It has thus become evident that three things, through mastery of pure discriminative practice, the extremely subtle conscious nature revealed within the realization of the undivided power of consciousness, and the direct self experience of the unattached nature of conscious power, serve as weapons by which not only the senses can be overcome, but the known object and the knowing soul can also be clearly distinguished and separated. In this age, the spiritual
Bas.
noble one.
Stop. So up to this only we will read. Rest of all you can do as a homework. So 3 points. Three senses, three kinds of senses, and three corresponding arguments to practice the discriminative knowledge. Okay. Just take it above, Darshit ji. थोड़ा सा slight. Yes. These three. A special point to be noted is this: since the substantial senses, dravya indriya, physical senses, material senses, are manifestly inert, non-living, to conquer them, the exceedingly subtle conscious nature revealed in the innermost self through the proficiency of pure practice in discrimination is taken up. Okay. So this is the solution. The problem was the material senses, and the solution was exceedingly subtle conscious nature, revealed in the innermost self through the proficiency of pure practice in discrimination. Okay, so this is first of the senses. To conquer the second senses, which is the psychic senses, being fragmented, make knowledge appear in fragments. Okay, psychic senses do operate in such senses that knowledge appear in fragments. In order to conquer them, the indivisible power of consciousness appearing in direct awareness is taken up. And the third one, to conquer the senses in the form of external object of the senses, pargne, the detached nature of the conscious power. Okay, the detached nature of the conscious power directly experienced by self is taken up. Okay, for it is precisely due to the nearness of the known and the knower, due to association, that the delusion of their unity arises. Okay, so this is how we practice the discriminative knowledge. For each senses, a logical argument is given, and if you ponder for a few minutes, you will also realize that this is a unique way of practicing discriminative knowledge. Okay, so very nicely written by Acharya Amrit Chandra Dev. Those who know Hindi, they can also read the Hindi textbook once, so for better understanding. And uh, you have 1 week's time, so we meet again the next week. So you just practice, repeat it again and again, and also read words number 32 and 33, which is together, which we will be doing in the next week. Okay, so we will close for right now, and if you have any questions, we can take up after the stuti. निज निधि निज में बताई, यह अनंत उपकार है, उसके लिए जिन वाणी माँ को वंदना सत बार है, उसके लिए जिन वाणी माँ को वंदना सत बार है. 9 times नमोकार मंत्र.